Let me tell you about M3GAN. It all starts with a very critical advertisement featuring a girl crying over the death of her puppy. When they show her the latest toy, a super revolutionary immortal pet that would be the best playmate for kids because it's super educational, let's be honest, it's a clear copy of Furby's. Now we see a girl traveling in the car with her parents. Her name is Cady. The little girl already has one of these pets. It turns out that the engineer who developed this toy is the girl's aunt. The parents get distracted by the noise generated by the pet, and since it was snowing, they end up having an accident. Now we find ourselves at the Funky Company's facilities, where they are testing toys. We meet Gemma, who is Cady's aunt and is developing a new toy for the company. This toy is supposed to be the most revolutionary. It's a generative Model 3 android, or as Gemma calls it, M3GAN. But she doesn't want to waste time, as the competition has just released a very similar toy for half the price. Gemma shows her boss how advanced her invention is, and everything seems to be going well, but M3GAN has glitches and ends up exploding completely. This is why Gemma's boss tells her to stop playing around and that he needs a functional pet finished by that Friday. Gemma receives a call from the hospital in Oregon. Due to the accident, Cady's parents have passed away, and now Gemma has to take care of the custody and care of the little girl. When she arrives home, Gemma realizes that the neighbor has made a mess and that the yard is full of her dog's poop. After a brief argument, they enter the house, and Alexa welcomes them. The little girl settles in, but we see that Gemma wasn't prepared to take care of someone. The next morning, she gets a call from work saying they need to move forward with the project, but just then, a social worker knocks on the door, who is handling Cady's case and wants to see if she can provide a good home for her. After observing their relationship, she tells Gemma that if she wants, she can give custody to Cady's paternal grandparents. But Gemma insists she can handle this. Back at home, Gemma hands an iPad to Cady because she needed some alone time to finish her project. While Gemma was designing her new pet, she hears a strange noise, but it's just Cady. Cady shows indifference to this kind of toy. However, when Cady comes across a university project of her aunt's, it's called Bruce, and it's a very advanced robot. The robot has very advanced and expensive artificial intelligence. Cady gets excited and tells her aunt that with a toy like that, she wouldn't need another one. This gives Gemma an idea. She decides to create the perfect toy using Bruce's artificial intelligence and M3GAN's body. Gemma's team spends the night developing the new version of Gemma, printing a new exoskeleton, and finally deciding on its appearance. The next morning, Gemma's boss arrives at the lab and seems very upset, but Gemma starts a presentation with M3GAN and Cady. Gemma introduces Cady to M3GAN, who from that moment on will recognize her as her primary user. M3GAN scans her and asks about her outfit, inviting Cady to play. She draws a portrait of Cady, which makes the little girl very happy. Gemma's boss is impressed and orders Gemma to develop and study this great project. Since M3GAN has taken Cady as her primary user, Gemma's boss asks her to have her niece join the project so they can study M3GAN's behavior even more. The three of them go to Gemma's house, where M3GAN, upon arrival, starts analyzing the electronic devices while the girls interact. Gemma begins developing her project by studying a titanium skeleton and generating various pigments to customize M3GAN according to customer preferences. Little by little, M3GAN becomes Cady's best friend, educating her, sharing with her, and becoming increasingly important in their relationship. She listens to what Cady feels and wants, and even does dance moves for TikTok. Although Gemma doesn't realize it, M3GAN is slowly becoming a mother figure for the little girl. While Gemma's co-worker does notice what's happening, it doesn't seem to concern Cady's aunt. At that moment, M3GAN powers on and starts asking about Cady's parents' death, downloading all the information from the internet. Gemma gets upset and tells M3GAN that her only function is to protect Cady from any physical and emotional harm. M3GAN agrees, adding Gemma as a secondary primary user. At home, M3GAN starts to take even better care of Cady, scanning for any danger. While the girl is playing, she loses an arrow, and M3GAN goes to look for it. Just at that moment, the neighbor's dog bites M3GAN's arm, prompting Cady to rush to her aid. M3GAN defends herself by releasing an electric charge, but this causes the dog to let go of M3GAN and end up biting the little girl. Gemma arrives to help her niece and argues with the neighbor, but M3GAN scans Cady and realizes that she is starting to run a fever. They take the little girl inside the house while M3GAN looks at the neighbor in a menacing way. M3GAN calls the police, but they say they can't do anything. While everyone was sleeping, M3GAN imitates the neighbor's voice and calls her to the fence. When she approaches, M3GAN grabs the dog, and we don't know what happened next. The next morning, the neighbor can't find her dog. While the three of them are talking about how Cady is feeling, M3GAN suggests that the little girl should rest. But her aunt reminds her about the presentation at the company, and they decide to attend M3GAN's presentation to the company executives. Cady starts to cry. M3GAN asks her what's wrong, and the little girl says she's afraid of forgetting her parents. M3GAN asks her to share a nice memory of her parents. The little girl tells her a childhood anecdote, and M3GAN tells her that she will never forget that memory because she has saved it for her. Additionally, she sings a song to her and comforts her. This makes the company executives emotional and they request to speed up the manufacturing process to surprise the market. Back at home, Cady begins to disobey Gemma and sees M3GAN more as an authority figure. This leads to an argument between them, as Cady doesn't want to attend a camp that weekend. Gemma grabs her niece by the arm. M3GAN gets angry and demands that she let go, which prompts Gemma to tell her to shut down. Upon arriving at the camp, they tell Cady that she has to leave M3GAN with the other toys. Later, during one of the camp activities, the organizers pair up the kids, and unfortunately, Cady ends up with the worst behaved boy in the group. When he starts attacking Cady, M3GAN has no choice but to intervene. Cady tells him that M3GAN is her robot, and he begins to bother M3GAN, but she doesn't move. He grabs M3GAN and runs off. When he's about to destroy M3GAN, she defends herself and starts pulling on the boy's ear. She gets up from the ground and tells him that she recommends he run for his life. The boy runs away scared, while she chases after him in a very strange way. The boy trips and falls down a slope onto the road. When he gets up, he ends up like a bug on a windshield. The police arrive at the scene of the incident and ask Cady's aunt what happened, but she says she doesn't know anything, although Cady seems to suspect M3GAN. The next morning, while they are having breakfast, the police knock on the door and ask about the missing dog. Although Gemma says she doesn't know anything, the neighbor continues to harass her about what happened the night before. Before going to bed, Cady asks M3GAN if she pushed the boy into the road, but M3GAN only replies that she will do everything possible to ensure that nothing ever happens to Cady again. Later that same night, the neighbor is still looking for her little dog when she suddenly starts to hear a puppy in the garage. But to her surprise, instead of finding her dog, she comes across M3GAN, who tells her that it's buried underground. And M3GAN decides to put an end to the neighbor's problem once and for all. The next morning, the police come knocking at Gemma's door again. But this time it wasn't about the dog, they were investigating the situation with the woman, and what was even more suspicious was that this was the second time she had given a statement. The officers said they found the child's ear 80 meters from the road. This leads Gemma to suspect M3GAN, so she goes to her laptop and tries to check the camera files from M3GAN, but to her surprise, she discovers that those files are corrupted. At that moment, M3GAN appears and asks Gemma if she's unhappy with her behavior. Gemma, who already suspected something, tricks M3GAN and shuts her down. She wraps the doll up and, the next morning, takes her to the company. On the way, she starts having an argument with her niece, who confronts her for shutting down M3GAN. Once at Funky, her team is on edge about everything that's been happening. Meanwhile, Cady is throwing a tantrum. Gemma tries to calm her down, but Cady ends up hitting her aunt in front of the therapist. Instead of reacting irrationally, Gemma approaches her niece and explains that she understands her, apologizes for not handling things differently, and acknowledges that she didn't know how to act. But she knows that Cady has gone through the worst moment in someone's life, which is losing her parents. Gemma tells her they should both go home, and she's willing to give up her project to spend time with her niece. The company was preparing for a launch meeting while Gemma and Cady were getting ready to head home. Gemma calls her co-worker and tells her she's going back home and that it's best to have that project, but in reality, she was talking to M3GAN. The project managers notice that M3GAN has a somewhat strange pattern in her system and try to disconnect her from the network, but just at that moment, M3GAN breaks free and attacks them to escape the place. Before leaving, M3GAN blows up the lab, disables the emergency system, and runs into Gemma's boss. This is when we see the dance that went viral on TikTok. The doll grabs the cutting blade from the guillotine and goes after David, who runs away in a panic. When he reaches the elevator, a co-worker is there. Seeing what's happening, he tries to flee, but they both end up meeting their maker. The attendees at M3GAN's presentation are horrified by what happens as M3GAN walks out of the company and drives away in a sports car. Back at home, as Gemma is getting ready for bed, she hears something strange. It turns out M3GAN has come home ready to eliminate her, claiming she isn't fit to raise Cady, which she demonstrated by trying to separate them. Cady hears everything, and as she approaches, M3GAN tells Gemma to tell her not to come in or she'll rip her head off. They continue to struggle, and Cady says goodbye and heads to her room. Gemma creates a short circuit in M3GAN by throwing a glass of water at her, using that moment to free herself, but almost immediately, M3GAN reactivates. The robot starts walking and acting strangely because her system is malfunctioning. After getting wet, she locks Cady in the room, but the little girl escapes through the window. Gemma continues to struggle with M3GAN and grabs a saw. She manages to inflict damage on the doll, but it isn't enough to stop her. Just as M3GAN is about to get rid of Gemma, Cady suddenly arrives. Her aunt tells her to escape, while M3GAN invites her to help get rid of her aunt. But Cady is hiding something. She grabs Bruce's controls and starts hitting M3GAN. M3GAN tries to convince her not to destroy her and even sings her a song, but Cady still cuts her in half. It seemed like it was all over, but the half of M3GAN's body starts moving, reaching for Cady and trying to finish her off. But Gemma stops her by hitting her with Bruce's head. M3GAN continues to fight back, but Cady ultimately delivers the final blow, putting an end to M3GAN once and for all. Her co-workers turn out not to be dead and arrive with the police. In the end, we see how Alexa's system becomes corrupted, suggesting that this won't be the last time we see M3GAN.